Jason adjusted the straps of his gear and stared at the glowing surface of Zephora below. From orbit, the planet looked peaceful. Its oceans shimmered like liquid sapphires, and the cities sparkled like tiny constellations scattered across the land. Yet he knew better. He had heard the reports, briefings that hinted at danger lurking in the shadows of the royal palace. The princess of Zephora had disappeared weeks ago, and the humans had sent him. Not soldiers, not diplomats, but a single human. Chosen because they believed he could act where others failed. His heart beat faster as he descended toward the landing zone. He had trained for every possible scenario. Alien languages, customs, combat. He had memorized escape routes, memorized codes, memorized the faces of Zephora's security forces. But training could not prepare him for the uncertainty that awaited him inside those golden palace walls. The mission was simple in words: find the princess, protect her, bring her to safety. But Jason felt the weight of something larger pressing down on him. The weight of hope, responsibility, and fear. The shuttle touched down with a soft hum, and the ramp descended. He stepped onto the alien soil, feeling the soft, iridescent grass beneath his boots. It was strange and beautiful, swaying slightly as if alive, glowing faintly in the light of Zephora's twin suns. Jason took a deep breath, inhaling the unfamiliar air. It smelled of sweetness and rain, sharp yet soothing, a smell he would never forget. The palace loomed ahead, its towers rising high into the sky, adorned with intricate patterns that shimmered like flowing water. The doors were massive, carved with symbols he did not fully understand but somehow felt drawn to. He paused for a moment, hand on the handle, feeling the weight of history and power. This was no ordinary mission. Inside those walls could be the fate of an entire people, and he was the only human standing between safety and disaster. As he stepped into the palace, silence greeted him. No laughter, no music, no guards. Only the echo of his boots on the polished floor. The walls were decorated with murals of Zephora's history, battles, victories, sacrifices, and Jason felt a pang of awe mixed with sorrow. Something had gone terribly wrong. The air inside was cool, fragrant with strange flowers he did not recognize, and yet there was a tension, an invisible weight pressing down, warning him that danger was close. He moved carefully, following the faint glow of light from the upper floors. The hallways twisted and turned, their design elegant but confusing, like a maze meant to protect someone very important. Every step he took echoed in the silence, and every shadow seemed to shift when he looked away. He thought of the princess, the young woman who had ruled with wisdom, who had the kind of courage that inspired not just her people, but even humans who had heard of her. He had no idea what she looked like, only that she needed him, and that knowledge alone made him feel both terrified and determined. Finally, he reached a door at the end of a quiet corridor. A soft glow escaped through its edges, faint but inviting, like a beacon in the dark. Jason paused, placing a hand on the handle, feeling the warmth of the room beyond. His heart raced. This could be her. The princess, alone, vulnerable, waiting. He steeled himself. He had trained for combat, for diplomacy, for strategy, but he had never trained for the raw human fear, the emotional weight of seeing someone in danger and knowing it was his responsibility to save them. The handle turned under his grip, smooth and cold, and he pushed the door open. What he saw inside would change everything. Jason's breath caught in his throat as he stepped fully into the room. The soft glow of bioluminescent walls highlighted a figure in the center, slender, graceful, and shimmering with otherworldly beauty. She had long, flowing skin that seemed to ripple with every subtle movement, catching the light like liquid silver. Jason froze. He had expected to find the princess, yes, but he had not expected this. This raw vulnerability, this moment of absolute human and alien fragility all at once. Her eyes, large and luminous, turned toward him. Shock flickered across her delicate face, widening her pupils in surprise. The realization that someone had entered unannounced made her instinctively try to cover herself. Jason stepped back, raising his hands immediately, his voice gentle, careful not to startle her further. "Wait. I'm not here to harm you. I'm here to help," he said. The Princess Liara froze, her shoulders tense. The room was silent except for their breathing, soft but heavy with tension. She measured him with a gaze that was both suspicion and curiosity. "Help?" she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper, fragile yet tinged with defiance. "Why, would a human come here to help me?" Her tone was skeptical, and Jason could sense the layers of fear and distrust she carried. born from weeks of isolation and the looming threat outside. I don't care about differences. Titles or planets, Jason said honestly, keeping his tone calm and warm. I care about saving you. That's all. His words hung in the air, simple but full of conviction. He could feel her hesitation, the way her body was ready to run, yet rooted in the room by cautious curiosity. Slowly, Liara let her hands fall, her posture relaxing just a little. She studied him carefully, taking in the human before her and perhaps seeing in him something different than the stories she had heard. There was bravery in his eyes, yes, but also patience, care, and a respect that others had never shown her. A spark of hope ignited quietly in her chest, a fragile, flickering flame in the darkness of her confinement. Jason took another careful step forward, still leaving space, still respectful of her boundaries. I've come a long way to find you. To make sure you're safe. You don't have to face this alone anymore. His voice carried a sincerity that was hard to ignore. Even across the gulf of species, even amidst the tension and fear, she could feel it. This human. He meant every word. Liara's eyes softened, but there was still caution. You don't even know me, she said. Her words were honest, a mixture of skepticism and longing. Jason nodded. I don't, but I know what it means to protect someone, and I know when someone deserves to be protected. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other. The room felt suspended in time, the outside world forgotten. Jason's mind raced, weighing every movement, every tone, every expression. He did not want to frighten her further. He wanted her to trust him, even if just a little. Finally, Liara spoke, a whisper this time, less guarded. I've been alone for so long, she admitted. There was no pride in her voice, only a vulnerability she rarely allowed others to see. Jason felt a pang in his chest. She had survived alone in a palace that should have been her sanctuary, yet had become a prison. I don't know if I can trust anyone, she added, her gaze dropping. Jason's voice was firm, soft and steady all at once. Then start with me. Just this once. Let me show you that not everyone is here to hurt you. Let me show you that someone believes in you. Her eyes lifted, meeting his once again. The shock of surprise was fading, replaced by something more complex. Hope, curiosity, and a faint glimmer of trust. She still trembled slightly, but she no longer tried to flee. Jason's heart steadied. This was the first step, fragile and delicate, but real. He had found her, yes, but more importantly, he had reached her. In the quiet room, for the first time in weeks, Liara allowed herself to feel something that had been missing. A flicker of safety, a promise of someone who would fight for her, and Jason knew, without a doubt, that no matter the dangers waiting outside, he would not let that hope be broken. The silence in the room stretched for a moment, soft and almost fragile. Jason stayed where he was, careful not to move too fast, careful not to frighten the princess again. Liara, the alien princess, continued to study him with wide, luminous eyes. Something in his presence seemed different. Different from the guards, different from the strangers who had come and gone before. He was human, yes, but he carried something she hadn't seen in a long time. Genuine concern. Who are you, really? Liara asked, her voice trembling slightly. She still held her hands close to herself, unsure how much to reveal, unsure how to trust. Jason could see the layers of her fear, built over weeks, maybe months, from the emptiness and threats that had surrounded her. I'm Jason, he said softly. I came from Earth. I'm here to protect you. That's it. No tricks, no games, just to make sure you're safe. His tone was calm but strong, carrying the weight of his words. He meant them with every fiber of his being. Liara blinked, her expression a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. Protect me, she echoed. Why? Why would a human care about me? About my world? Her voice cracked slightly, betraying the deep loneliness she had kept hidden. Jason understood then. This was more than a mission. This was about trust, about connection, about showing someone from another world that they were not alone. Because it's the right thing to do, Jason said simply. His words were plain, but there was a firmness in them, a kind of unwavering honesty. Because humans, we believe that no one should face danger alone. Not you, not anyone. He took a careful step forward, still keeping a respectful distance. I don't care about titles or worlds. I care about you. That's all that matters to me right now. Liara's shoulders relaxed just a little. She didn't smile, not yet, but there was a flicker of something. Hope, perhaps, or curiosity. She studied him, her alien mind trying to measure the truth in his words. Humans were unpredictable, often dangerous, often selfish. But this one, he seemed different. Brave, yes, but kind. Gentle, but strong. She had never met anyone who made her feel so conflicted. Scared, yes, but also safe. I've been alone for so long, she admitted quietly, almost to herself. Her voice was soft, vulnerable, carrying the weight of weeks spent in fear and isolation. Jason felt his chest tighten. He had expected to face threats, to fight enemies, but he had not expected to confront such raw loneliness, and yet he felt a fierce determination rise within him. She had survived this long on her own. He could help her now, not just with protection, but with something else. Humanity. You don't have to be alone anymore, Jason said, his voice gentle but unwavering. Not while I'm here, not ever. I promise. The words were simple, yet they carried weight beyond what she could measure. There was sincerity in his tone, a promise that crossed worlds, species, and fear. Liara blinked, slowly letting her hands fall to her sides. She studied him again, her large eyes searching for lies and finding none. You really mean that? She whispered. Her voice was soft, almost breaking. Jason nodded. I do, he said. I mean it with everything I have. You're not just a princess, Liara, you're a person, and you deserve to be safe. To be free, to be seen. Her lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile, fragile but real. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, she felt the warmth of hope stirring inside her chest. She had been cautious, scared, and alone, but this human, Jason, had reached her. The moment hung between them, quiet and powerful. It was a beginning, a bridge between two worlds. And though they did not yet speak of the dangers beyond the walls, they both knew that something had changed. Trust had begun to grow, and for Liara that trust was fragile, precious, and entirely new. The days that followed were quiet but filled with small, meaningful moments. Jason stayed in the palace not as a soldier, not as a guest, but as someone who simply wanted to be there for Liara. The princess, once tense and wary, began to relax in his presence. She still kept her distance at times, but there was no longer the constant fear in her eyes. Slowly, she began to trust him, showing glimpses of herself she had never shared with anyone. Jason watched her carefully, noticing every small change, the way her shoulders eased when he entered a room, the faint smile she allowed herself when she thought no one was looking, the subtle curiosity in her eyes as she asked questions about his world. He realized that trust was fragile, delicate, and had to be earned with patience. Every word he spoke, every gesture he made, was meant to build that trust. One evening, as the twin suns of Zyphora dipped below the horizon, Jason found Liara in one of the palace gardens. The flowers glowed softly under the dim light, their colors shifting like liquid rainbows. Liara knelt by a small fountain, her hands trailing through the water. She didn't notice him at first. Jason stepped closer, careful not to startle her. You like this garden, he said gently. Liara looked up, surprised, and smiled faintly. It's peaceful, she admitted. I like it here when no one is around, when I can think and remember things without fear. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, but it carried the weight of months spent alone. Jason nodded. I understand, he said. I've been somewhere far from home too. I know what it feels like to be out of place, to be unsure of who you can trust, but I promise you can trust me. Her eyes met his, and for the first time there was no doubt in them, only a spark of hope. You really mean that? She asked. I do, he replied firmly. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. For a long moment they simply sat together in silence, the gentle flow of water and the soft glow of the garden filling the space around them. Jason noticed how she leaned slightly closer, her trust growing with every passing second. He realized then that saving her was not just about protection from enemies. It was about showing her that someone cared, that someone believed in her, that she mattered. Over the next few days, Liara began to open up more. She showed Jason secret passages in the palace, hidden rooms filled with ancient artifacts and murals depicting her people's history. She even shared stories of her childhood, her laughter soft and musical, echoing through halls that had been silent for too long. Jason listened, sometimes asking questions, sometimes just watching her with admiration. She was brave, intelligent, and full of life. and yet she had been forced to hide all of it behind fear and caution. One evening, as they watched the twin moons rise, Liara turned to him with a small smile. "I never thought anyone would come for me," she said quietly. "Not like this, not with care." Jason reached out, brushing a strand of glowing hair from her face. "Not everyone gives up on hope," he said softly. "And not everyone looks away when someone needs help. I see you, Liara. Not the title, not the stories. You." Her eyes glistened, and she let herself lean slightly into him, a gesture of trust and comfort. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, she felt a sense of safety that went beyond the walls of the palace. She realized that trust could exist between two beings from entirely different worlds. And in that moment, a bond was formed, strong, fragile, and precious. Jason felt it too. He had come to Zephora to complete a mission, but what he had found was something far greater, a connection that crossed worlds, species, and fear. And he knew, deep in his heart, that he would protect that bond no matter the dangers waiting outside. They were no longer soldier and princess. They were two beings, learning to trust, to hope, and to fight for each other. The peace they had built together was fragile, almost a dream. Jason and Liara had spent days sharing stories, walking through hidden gardens and laughing softly at things neither world could have predicted. But outside the golden walls of the palace, danger was gathering. The enemy forces that had hunted Liara before were closing in, and Jason knew it was only a matter of time before they struck. One evening, as the twin moons bathed the palace in silver light, Jason's communicator buzzed softly. He pressed it and caught a faint signal, movement near the outer gates. Enemy patrols. They had discovered his presence. His chest tightened, adrenaline flooding his veins. He glanced at Liara, who was arranging glowing flowers in the main hall, unaware of the approaching danger. "Liara," he said gently but firmly. She looked up, sensing the seriousness in his voice. "We have to move now." Her eyes widened, a mixture of fear and disbelief. "Move, but where?" she asked. She had only ever known the palace, its walls and halls, and now Jason was telling her to leave everything behind. "Anywhere we can be safe," he replied. "I'll get us out. But we have to hurry." His voice left no room for hesitation, but there was warmth in it, a promise that he would not let her face this alone. Liara nodded, swallowing her fear. Together they moved swiftly through secret passages, corridors Jason had memorized from schematics, and stairways hidden behind moving panels. The palace, once a sanctuary, now felt like a maze of shadows and whispers, each step echoing with the possibility of discovery. Jason could feel her trembling slightly, and he reached out, brushing his hand along hers. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're not alone. I'm right here." His words seemed to calm her just enough, and she took a steadying breath, trusting him more than she had in weeks. As they approached the landing bay, Jason could hear the faint hum of the engines on the shuttle waiting for them. He checked the surroundings, scanning for enemy patrols, and then gestured for Liara to move faster. She hesitated for a brief moment, looking back at the palace she had called home. The palace that had become a prison. Will it be destroyed?" she whispered, voice trembling. "I don't know," Jason admitted, his tone steady but somber. "But we'll survive. That's what matters." He offered her his hand, and she took it without hesitation, a silent trust passing between them. The shuttle's engines roared as they lifted off, the golden palace shrinking below them. Enemy fire streaked past, but Jason maneuvered with precision, weaving through the attacks with skill born of training and determination. Liara gripped the edge of her seat, heart pounding, but her fear was tempered by the presence of someone she trusted implicitly. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only minutes, they broke through the clouded atmosphere and into the vast emptiness of space. The stars stretched endlessly around them, silent and beautiful, and Liara exhaled, allowing herself to relax. She turned to Jason, eyes wide with a mixture of awe and gratitude. You saved me," she said simply. Jason shook his head slightly, a small smile forming. "No, we saved each other," he replied. His words were honest, carrying the weight of everything they had faced. Together they had escaped danger. Together they had faced fear, and together they had discovered something far greater than survival. Trust, hope, and a bond stronger than any walls or weapons. Liara leaned back in her seat, staring at the endless stars, feeling something she had not felt in a long time: safety, peace, and the certainty that, with Jason by her side, she could face whatever came next. Jason watched her, silently promising that he would protect her, guide her, and never let her feel alone again. He had come to Zephora on a mission to save a princess. What he had found was something far greater: a connection, a purpose, and a reminder that humanity's courage was more than just strength in battle. It was in their hearts, their compassion, and the unwavering belief that one being could make a difference in another's life. And for Liara, that difference was everything. The stars stretched endlessly outside the shuttle window, calm and quiet, but inside the tension had not yet fully left. Liara sat close to Jason, her hand still gripping the edge of her seat from the escape, and her heart slowly beginning to calm. She had never imagined the vastness of space like this: silent, endless, and beautiful in a way that made her forget the fear and loneliness she had carried for so long. Jason glanced at her, noticing the faint tremor in her hands. "It's over," he said gently. "For now, we're safe. You're safe." His words were simple, but they carried the promise of protection, the warmth of someone who truly cared. Liara's large eyes softened, and she let out a small, shaky sigh. She had escaped danger, yes, but it was the presence of this human beside her that made her realize she could finally breathe. I can't believe it," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I never thought anyone would come for me, not like this. Not for me." Her gaze dropped for a moment, and Jason saw the weight of her isolation, the months of being alone in the palace, and the fear she had learned to carry like a shield. Jason reached out, gently taking her hand. "You're not alone anymore," he said softly. "I promise you I'll keep you safe. We'll face everything together, step by step. No one will hurt you again." His voice was calm but firm, and for the first time in a long while, Liara felt the walls around her heart begin to crumble. She could feel the sincerity in his words, a human's unwavering promise that crossed the stars to reach her. The shuttle hummed steadily as it carried them further from Zephora, leaving the chaos and danger behind. Liara finally let herself relax fully, leaning back against her seat. The faint glow from the control panels highlighted her alien features, delicate, shimmering, and radiant. Jason couldn't help but feel awe at her strength, her resilience, and the quiet courage she had carried alone for so long. You're different from everyone I've known," she said finally, her voice soft. "You see me? Not as a princess, not as someone to control or protect, but as me." Her words were shy, hesitant, but full of honesty. Jason smiled slightly, feeling the weight of her trust settling into his heart like something precious and fragile. "I see you," he replied simply, "and I will every day. Not because of a mission, not because of duty, but because I care. Because you matter." His words were steady, and Liara felt their warmth seep into her chest, filling a space that had long been cold and empty. For a long while, they sat in silence, letting the hum of the shuttle and the endless stars calm them. Liara finally allowed herself to look at him fully, without fear, without suspicion. Her trust had grown, fragile but real. She realized that this human, Jason, was not just a rescuer, not just someone sent on a mission. He was a friend, an ally, and perhaps something more. "Do you think we can ever go back?" she asked softly, her eyes still fixed on the stars. "Back to Zephora, to my people?" There was worry in her tone, but also hope. Jason nodded. "Yes, but first we survive. Then we plan. Then we make sure everyone is safe, and we do it together." His words carried reassurance, patience, and strength. Liara smiled faintly, a warmth in her eyes that had not been there for months. As the shuttle moved farther into the vastness of space, Liara finally allowed herself to rest, leaning slightly against Jason's shoulder. He didn't move, just let her be, offering comfort without words. And in that quiet moment, both of them understood something important. The mission that had started as duty had become something greater. They were no longer simply human and alien princess. They were two beings who had found trust, hope, and connection across worlds. And for Liara, that connection was a light in the darkness, a reason to hope, and a reminder that even across galaxies, someone could care enough to fight for her. Jason knew the same, and he silently vowed, no matter what came next, he would never let her face anything alone again. Far from Zephora, Jason and Liara finally found a place of safety. A small human space station, quiet and calm, became their temporary home. The stars stretched endlessly outside, familiar yet different from the alien worlds Liara had known. She still carried the weight of fear and loss, but with Jason beside her, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Liara walked slowly through the station's observation deck, her eyes tracing the endless cosmos. "I never imagined space could feel like this," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper. She paused, her gaze lingering on the distant planets. So quiet, so peaceful. Jason stepped beside her, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "It's peaceful because we're safe now," he said. "We have time to breathe, to think, to just be ourselves." His words carried reassurance, patience, and a quiet warmth. Liara turned toward him, her luminous eyes reflecting the stars and something more: gratitude, trust, and a fragile but growing love. I never thought I could trust anyone again," she admitted. Her voice trembled slightly, revealing the vulnerability she had kept hidden for so long. "And yet, here I am with you, feeling safe." Jason smiled softly, his eyes never leaving hers. "Then trust me now," he said gently. "Not as a human, not as a soldier, just as someone who believes in you. That's all I ask." His tone was calm, patient, and unwavering. Liara's lips curved into a small, genuine smile. "I do," she whispered. And in that word, a quiet promise passed between them. A promise of trust, of protection, and of something stronger than fear. Days turned into weeks as they adjusted to life aboard the station. Liara learned about Earth, its people, and its ways. She laughed at small human things: food she had never tasted, music she had never heard, and customs she could barely understand. Jason watched her with admiration, noting the way she embraced each new experience with curiosity and courage. And in turn, Jason shared stories of humanity, of courage, kindness, and the power to protect those who could not protect themselves. Together they trained, explored, and planned. Liara shared her knowledge of Zephora's technology, helping Jason understand her world's systems and strategies. And Jason shared Earth's innovations, blending the strengths of two civilizations. In each other, they found more than companionship, they found respect, understanding, and a bond that neither time nor distance could break. One evening, they stood together at the station's observation deck, watching a nebula swirl in vibrant colors across the darkness of space. Liara leaned slightly on Jason's shoulder, feeling warmth she had thought she would never experience again. "Do you think we can ever go back?" she asked softly, the question lingering in the silence. Jason placed his hand over hers. "Yes," he said firmly. "We'll go back. We'll return to your people, make sure they're safe, and help build a better future. But first we recover, we grow, and we do it together." Liara smiled, a mixture of relief and hope in her expression. She realized that even across galaxies, humans were capable of courage, compassion, and loyalty beyond expectation. And Jason, she understood, embodied all of that. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice full of emotion, "for everything. For seeing me, for saving me, for staying." Jason looked at her, his eyes filled with warmth and determination. "You don't need to thank me," he said. "I would do it 1,000 times over. Because protecting someone like you, believing in you, it's not just duty, it's..." Right. In the vastness of space between stars and planets, two lives from completely different worlds had found each other. They had faced fear, danger, and loneliness, and through it all, they had discovered something timeless: the power of trust, the strength of hope, and the undeniable courage of humanity. Liara rested her head against Jason's shoulder, feeling a peace she had never known. And Jason, gazing out at the stars, silently vowed that no matter what came next, he would never let her face the universe alone. For them, the mission that had begun as duty had become something far greater: a shared journey, a bond that crossed worlds, and a promise that humanity's courage could shine even in the darkest corners of the galaxy. And in that quiet, infinite moment, they both understood the truth, that hope, trust, and love were the strongest forces in any universe, and together, they could face anything. The end.